Totally. Brock Purdy completed 19 of his 27 attempts for 314 yards, 4 touchdowns. He finished with a passer rating of 48.8, and his touchdown total is now 23 on this season. Not bad for a system quarterback picked with the last pick of the draft, if you don't mind me saying.
One thing that we also have to throw in there, Damon, because he completed 23 of his last 29. He started 0 for 4. So that means after Brock Purdy's 0 for 4 start, Brock Purdy completed almost 80% of his passes against this Eagles vaunted D.
It's one thing to have that kind of completion percentage. It's another thing to have that completion percentage tied to an average of over 10 yards per pass. Right. I mean, this guy is hunting big plays and still carrying a completion percentage that is video game-like. So that's so impressive. And, you know, your joke, Larry, about Link being Levi's East, there were more red jerseys in there. It almost looked like the Eagles were setting up the stadium for their Christmas picture. They got a lot of red and green, and those are the Christmas colors. Like, I've never seen that many opposing fans at an Eagles game. I'm dead serious about that. 49ers fans showed up and showed out in Philadelphia yesterday. They really did. It was the most impressive stadium takeover. It wasn't the most amount of fans you've seen in a stadium. Niners fans will take over stadiums down in LA. They did a nice job in Jacksonville. They'll take over stadiums. They didn't take over the Link, but boy, were they well represented. So I was really impressed by all that.
Yeah.
Back to
Brock. I mean, and by the way, we were talking about Purdy before. All of Purdy's 5 best games in his career, as far as passing yards, have come this season, and 3 have occurred in his last 4 games overall. How about that?
That's pretty good. Well, you want some how about that about Brock Purdy, Larry? I'd say I hope you're sitting down, but I see that you are, so let's just go. Brock Purdy's 70.4 completion percentage marks his 6th consecutive game with a completion percentage of 70 or higher, which is the longest streak of games with a completion percentage of 70 or higher by a 49ers quarterback since Joe Montana in 1989. So it's pretty good company to be keeping. It gets even better. Purdy has now registered 4 games this season with 3 or more touchdown passes and a passer rating of 140 or higher, which ties former quarterback Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers for the most such games by a quarterback in a single season in NFL history. Okay, so Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers have Brock Purdy standing in the same line in terms of, did you do this over the course of a season? And Purdy has checked that box, and with 5 more games to still play. Who knows how many times he continues to check that box. His 5 career games with a passer rating of 140 or higher in his first 2 seasons are the most by an NFL quarterback in their first 2 seasons in NFL history. Okay, I mean, so we're talking about a guy, we don't know where it ends, but the start is nothing short of historic and measurable against the best of the best of the best of the best that have ever played in this league or his position. One more time. 5 career games with a passer rating of 140 or higher in his first 2 seasons are the most by any NFL quarterback over their first 2 seasons in NFL history.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. For a guy drafted with the last pick in the draft. And I'll say this, all this talk about, well, you know, how does he do? Can he lead a team back? Can he lead a team back in the fourth quarter? Ultimately, what are you saying? When you're asking that question, what are you saying? You're saying that when things are bad and the momentum's not with him, can he lift the team up and play great football and respond? And to me, yesterday was proof of that. The Niners start the game with consecutive 3-and-outs. The place is howling. They're down 6-0. People are, I'm sure, sitting there going, Brock Purdy's not rolling in here and doing it. How did he respond? 11-play drive. On the 11-play drive, he completed 6 of 7 and then hits Ayuk in the end zone to get the Niners on the board. Then how does he follow that up? 10-play drive. He goes 90 yards. He completes another 4 out of 5 before McCaffrey scored a rushing touchdown to close out the first half. So, how does Brock Purdy respond to adversity on the road, tough environment? You just saw it there. An 11-play drive, 6 of 7, a 10-play drive, 4 of 5, and the Niners go into the locker room up 14-6.
Larry, the 49ers offense scored a touchdown on 6 consecutive possessions, which are the most consecutive touchdowns scored by the team in a single game since 1992. Okay.
Wow.
I mean, scoring 6 times in a row is rare in a Big 12 game, much less an NFL game. The 6 consecutive touchdown drives, also the most by any team since the Ravens put 6 together back in 2019. So you got to go back several seasons to find any other NFL team who did offensively what the Niners did Sunday at Lincoln Financial Field. Almost an afterthought in all this was a really good game out of Christian McCaffrey. Again, unless McCaffrey is going like $170 with 3 touchdowns, he's almost taken for granted at this point. He's like, of course, Steph Curry hit 5 threes. He does that every night. Well, that's what Christian McCaffrey's become. Christian McCaffrey, 17 carries, 93 yards, a touchdown on the ground, 3 catches, 40 yards, 3 catches, 40 yards through the air. He's got 17 total touchdowns on the season to tie Jerry Rice for the second most by a Niners player ever in a single season. McCaffrey is now over 1,000 yards. He's the first 49er to go over 1,000 yards rushing since Frank Gore in 2014. He's got 5 games left to play, Larry. He's over 1,000 yards already. Brandon Ayuk scored.
Before you move off McCaffrey,
okay, please.
His first touch wasn't until 14-11 of the second quarter. How about that? First time Christian McCaffrey, who some people think is the MVP of the league, touched the ball in the biggest game of the year, wasn't until 14-11 mark of the second quarter. And, I mean, he finished with 93 rushing yards on 17 attempts, 12th rushing touchdown. You just said it. He eclipsed the 1,000-yard mark for the 4th time in his career, and he did it in just 12 games. This guy is absolutely special. And once the Niners got CMC rolling, everything else kind of just fell into place. It was a beautiful thing. Go ahead.
Look, there's a lot of guys on this team who could play themselves into the Hall of Fame. McCaffrey's at the head of the class. McCaffrey is going to be a Hall of Famer. He's already done things that he's going to the Hall of Fame. That's who he is. And it's just you set your watch by him just falling forward. This guy plays, again, it's like he's an accordion. He can get big, he can get small. He can run through a big hole, he can run through a sliver. You get him matched up on the wrong linebacker, you're in an awful lot of trouble, and you saw that on the dramatic play that he took the ball way down. I mean, he just cooked. I don't even remember who that was. But the Eagles had a reputation for having slow linebackers, and George Kittle took advantage of that yesterday. McCaffrey took advantage of that, and Kyle Shanahan took advantage of that. His extra days to prepare were clearly well used. They really, really were. Ayuk,
I think it was Nicholas Morrow, wasn't it? Wasn't it Morrow? Or no, it was Christian. I think it was Christian Ellis. It might have been Christian Ellis. It was either Morrow or Ellis, and they got isolated on McCaffrey, and Purdy just threw a perfect dime, hit him in stride.
It wasn't even a wheel route either, but it sort of ended up like one where he turned the guy's hips around and just went.
Just a left flat, got ISO'd almost like a hot route on the linebacker, just sprinting off the line of scrimmage, and just ran right by the coverage, and Purdy led him right to the void. And that's the other thing too. You're starting to see Brock look in such lockstep with these receivers that when Brock can throw it to a spot and have a reasonable expectation that his receiver is going to be in that spot, how do you defend that? How do you defend a quarterback in lockstep with his receivers where they're throwing to spots and he's releasing the ball before the receiver's even breaking? I mean, it puts a ton of pressure on the D if you got a receiver and a quarterback that locked in, and he's locked in with like 3 or 4 different guys.
it all fit together perfectly. And it has fit together perfectly since Christian McCaffrey has shown up more than any other in-season ad I've ever seen a team trade for. He has changed the DNA of the 49ers dramatically. Brandon Ayuk has scored a touchdown now in 4 consecutive games for the first time in his career. He's the first 49er wide receiver to do it since Terrell Owens did it back in 2001. So it's been a really, really long time. Deebo Samuel, 3 touchdowns in the same game for the first time in his career. 4 catches, 116 yards, 2 touchdowns in the air, 3 carries, 22 yards and a touchdown. And you and I both agree, for the Niners to be at their very, very best, Deebo is a centerpiece of that day's game plan, and he is just scaring the hell out of everybody who has to tackle him, has to track him. You put 2 versatile weapons. It's crazy. You can take Christian McCaffrey and Deebo, and you can you can just scrub their positions right off of them. You can just call them football players. They do whatever the coach asks them to do. They can do it from any position on the field that isn't offensive lineman. I mean,
Deebo had my favorite play of the game, I thought, was the tunnel screen. The tunnel screen to Deebo where he went untouched, 46 yards untouched after the Hurts to Devontae Smith touchdown made it 35-19, and the Niners get it back with like 5 minutes left. 2 plays in, Purdy hits Deebo on a little tunnel screen, and he races diagonally through the defense unfreaking touched. I mean, and waving goodbye to everybody. And I loved it too. It's like, hey man, you called James Bradbury trash. Yeah, I'm going to stand by that. Oh, really? We'll talk about it on Sunday. We'll see you out there Sunday, I think is what he told Kay Adams. Well, we'll see Sunday. And like the way the Niners talked a big game, they had to deliver not just a win, they had to deliver a convincing win to really be like, yeah, that's right. We were confident we were going to beat you last year, and we're confident we're going to beat you this year. And if we're back here, we're confident we're going to beat you again. So, I mean, it's like, I thought it was the way the Niners handled all the talk and the way they delivered on the field was just a beautiful thing. You can't talk that game if you lose this game. You can't talk that smack if you win by a field goal. When you win 42-19, you can talk whatever you want to talk about it. You know what I mean? At that point, you just keep on talking.
8 yards a play.
Yeah.
That's all you need. 8 yards a play. 8 yards a play means you're going to lose, and you're going to lose by a lot just about every single time we play. 8 yards per play. Juwan Jennings, last bit of offensive just the facts I want to slip in here, because Jennings had a really nice game with 3 catches for 44 yards, a touchdown, his first touchdown reception of the season, only the 7th of his career. But Juwan Jennings is just a guy who understands his role. He knows his role. He fills his role on this team. 3rd and Juwan is real. That guy makes big catches to move chains, and he had a good game yesterday. He really did. Meanwhile, defensively for the 49ers, they held an opposing offense without a 100-yard individual rusher now for the 39th consecutive game. It is the longest active streak in all of football. Javon Kinlaw, I mean, let's hand him his flowers. He has been someone who has been doubted and counted out and has underperformed his draft status since the day he was drafted. Whether it be injuries, hook, crook, ability, doesn't matter. For the most part, the light has not come on for Javon Kinlaw. It has come on a little bit this year, and it's shown its brightest Sunday when he finishes with a 2-sack game. This guy doesn't sack a quarterback, but he had 2 on Sunday in Philadelphia.
4 other tackles besides that. So, yeah, he was active. I mean, let's be honest. This was, the one thing that was pretty clear to me, and I wasn't sure last year after the game, of course, because we don't have that much contact with the players, but it was pretty clear after the way that Eric Armstead responded, the way that Kinlaw responded, that the criticism, some of these guys are big, bad guys, right? And nobody's bigger or badder than Javon Kinlaw. But, they hear the criticism, and the criticism hurts. And he had an entire offseason to watch those highlights, people joking, hey, he's getting kicked out of the club, and everybody, took their shots at him in the aftermath of last year's NFC Championship game, because there were some really bad plays right on film there where Kelsey was kicking him out and he wasn't anchoring and he couldn't hold up on that knee and he just looked really, really bad. And Kinlaw, took a lot of that to heart. A lot of that, it was really hurt him. He is a kind of a sensitive guy. Armstead kind of even said it. He's like, hey man, that really got to Javon. And he, it's like, so he came back this year with just a vengeance. The Niners did not pick up his 5th-year option. That he doesn't even know if he's going to be on this team next year. But he has put together the best year of his career thus far. He's battling. He's staying healthy. He's playing with leverage more than he's not. He had an incredible play last week on Thanksgiving that led to the Ambry interception where he just absolutely ragdolled the center and waltzed him into the back of Geno and forced Geno to throw before he wanted to, and Ambry came away with a pick. And Kinlaw's playing better, much better. And in this game, he kept those feet moving. He made plays against the run. He got in the backfield. He was active. Very, very strong performance from Kinlaw. And I feel happiest in some ways for him because he got full redemption last night. I mean, he got full redemption. He was bad in last year's game. He was good in this year's game.
Look, he is finally delivering on the promise of the draft pick. He's never going to be a star. But
he's not Buckner.
He's going to occupy offensive linemen because he's a legit check. You've got to check him, and that opens the door for other guys to flourish around him. And the formula, when it works, it really, really works for the 49ers. And we need to come back, I think, to Kyle Shanahan. Kyle Shanahan, in spite of the single worst, and this is measured, this isn't an opinion, that's the worst opening quarter of Kyle Shanahan's entire life. -2 yards, 6 plays run. He's lucky as hell to only be down 6-0. But after that, Kyle called one of his best games he's ever called. And somebody even, Larry, on the post
6 straight possessions, they scored touchdowns. I mean, that was like 94 49er-esque right there.
Somebody asked me, do you think that Kyle was just using that first quarter to set up what he did later? No. Kyle's mission is to come out and score right away, and he usually does. So that was not I'm not saying that something wasn't established in the first that might have paid off for him a little bit later, but there was really nothing that happened that benefited the Niners in any way offensively in that opening quarter. And look at what they did still with 42 points and all those yards and 8 yards per play and nearly 11 yards per pass and all those touchdowns and just punches and bunches. When the Niners get rolling, they're a handful. And Shanahan got to do the Shanahan halftime special where he scores right before the half and then comes and gets the ball in the third quarter and scores right after. I mean, that Kyle, you want to talk about laying awake at night, having football fantasies. That's always right in the middle of Kyle's football fantasy. I want that wraparound score around the halftime. He got that. And just
the Niners are so comfortable in that mode that I think the advantageous thing to do if you're going against them is to make them as uncomfortable as possible and just don't let them get what they want, which is they want to kick it off and they want you to kick it off to begin the third quarter. And they feel most comfortable kind of scheming the game with that in mind. And I just think that if I was going against them in a playoff game, I'm just if anything I can do to make them uncomfortable. And I would try to force them to have the ball first to start the game.
Well, again, and the Niners have responded by scoring more opening drive points than any other team in the NFL. So if that's the poison that you choose, that could be enough to poison you. I mean, the Niners got answers this year. They really do. The Niners got answers.